A lot of families are just juggling the needs and the wants right now. And
prices are going higher, squeezing budgets even tighter. Every family is feeling the pinch, but what are the smart ways to save?
store shopping, especially in this inflationary environment, is almost turned into like a hunting game. And so where do you go?
Today on Mom Squad, we sit down with a financial advisor to talk about the smartest money moves to make right now and what will help keep money in your account. And Mom to Mom, we also talk about how we've found savings in our own budgets and the mistakes that we've made. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Mom Squad, the show where we talk all things parenting. And today, let's embrace our inner cheapskate. We have to in this economy. Grocery prices are increasing at a rapid pace. Gas prices have been high. The cost of everything is going up. So if you're in charge of maintaining that household budget, you have to find ways to cut. So joining me today, Brooke Dohar and Jenny Jordan, members of our production team that are fellow moms and penny pinchers that I talk to all the time about where they find ways to save and where we find the sales, and we're talking about that all the time. So thanks for doing this. Yeah. Where have you guys been noticing your household budget is going up? Any particular place?
Groceries for sure.
Yeah.
I think the things that I notice more are like the staples that you have to get, like eggs, milk, gas, of course.
Yeah.
But those are like the things you can't really work around. Coffee for us on this overnight shift. Like I'm not gonna not buy my coffee.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love shopping, but I love saving money more. So this is a good conversation.
I know, I feel like she always invites me on when we're talking about cheap things. Yeah. I'm like, wait a second.
Well, you are a big proponent of
I am.
couponing, saving, finding those ways.
I get
too.
a big high off of a good deal. So,
Yeah.
I think it's really the grocery budget is where it's hitting hard. I mean, gas prices for sure too, but those, again, the groceries, it's just, you know, it used to be like, okay, well, I buy this fruit during this time because that's when it's on sale. I buy this during this, and now it's just like everything's going up. And I'll even say, like, my mom, she very much like, she always knows off the top of her head how much, you know, milk is in that, you know. And she's like, now it's like I keep going, I'll wait and buy it because it's usually on sale. Well, that's not. And she's like, I had to train my brain on how much everything is because it's just a different scale.
Yeah.
Completely.
And I think this time of year is hard. Now, Brooke, you have a little one who's not in school, but when you're buying all of the back to school things, all of a sudden you're making lunches again, or like the price at the hot lunch might have gone up. Like all of a sudden, that budget, like what I'm spending has increased just on all the supplies I need to buy. And the prices have gone up too. So it's hard to cut this time of year too.
I agree 100%. And you know, I thought in the summer, we have so much snacks. I'm buying so much food because they're home all the time. I thought that's where I was going to be spending all the money. But it's now too because it's a convenience thing. We need meals that are ready to make so that we can run to soccer practice, that we can go here. And it's not just like, we're home for the summer, let's grill out hot dogs that are cheap, or you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a little bit more flexibility during the summer than now, when it's just like, I gotta buy it because that's what we need.
Right. And we're going to get into the places that we find savings, the ways we find savings. But before we talk about those ways that we save in our own budgets, I sat down one-on-one with financial advisor and mother of two, Elizabethscheiderer with Sequoia Financial, to talk about being a cheapskate this school year.
Yeah, no, and you're so right. A lot of families are just juggling the needs and the wants right now, and you get a school list of supplies, and all of a sudden those are needs. And you're like, okay, all right, so how do we approach this? And the great news today is that it's kind of end of the back to school shopping, so we're starting to see a lot of clearance items coming on sale, and so great time to be having this conversation and be forward thinking right now.
Yeah, and do you think, I mean, now I'm seeing things, maybe it's not my full school supply list, but I'm seeing like crayons, boxes of crayons. Do we pick those up even for next year, not knowing the school list?
Yeah, so for those basics, right, that's a great thing to look at the clearance aisle. Even after you bought your list for this year, go back, right, and say, I know next year we're gonna need folders, we're gonna need notebooks, and go ahead and purchase those items now at that even half off what you maybe paid 2 weeks ago for, and put that in a box. But the key is to remember, look at that box next July.
Yeah, don't forget about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you think that adds up? like savings wise?
Oh my goodness, yes, because all of a sudden the base needs for next year cut in half now, and if we're talking about inflation, I mean, these items could be $1 more expensive next year, and so getting those in your pocket now and in that box now is a great idea.
And one of the biggest expenses most parents talk about too, and friends and I even got into it the other night of like, what's cheaper? Buying a lunch at school or packing a lunch, and how do you make that with grocery store prices? Like, how do you price compare and how do you figure that out?
Exactly, and so that's a really interesting dynamic, and also kind of as your kids get older, kind of empowering them to say, all right, we've got 3 days this week, you can buy, 2 days we're packing, like how are you gonna budget that? And so you need to look at what's the price of that lunch or that breakfast, and then think about if I were to be packing and you go to the grocery store, what would I be buying? And then think, all right, is that $2 a lunch? Is that $4 a lunch because you're buying that name brand, applesauce pouch, right?
Yeah.
And so sit back and you kind of need to practice. You need to buy a week's worth of lunch, see how much that comes out to, and then compare it to the school price, and then you'll know.
That's funny. There's homework in it. There is a little bit
Homework
of
for parents with back to school season, of course.
but it does matter. I want to get to grocery shopping. I know that's on your list of where you can see savings, and we all buy in bulk at the bulk stores. But then, am I really saving with bulk stores, or where should I be shopping to find that grocery store savings?
Yeah, and so you're right. Grocery store shopping, especially in this inflationary environment, is almost turned into like a hunting game. And so where do you go? And that idea of shopping bulk is helpful, especially on that lunch idea, right? If you can buy 50 bags of chips, it's going to make it a lot cheaper than just buying a few at a time at the convenience store. But when you think about it, how do you best save money? And my biggest piece of advice here is don't discount those discount stores either. So especially if you've kind of kept your shopping at more of those higher end stores with the fancier kind of items, challenge yourself to try one of the discount stores and really see how much you could possibly save.
Yeah, you pointed out in some of your notes here, but I've noticed too, because locally we have Mark's, which is our local discount store. And I'm finding a lot of organic and local produce inside some of these stores.
Yeah, and this is where I'm seeing clients come in with the biggest changes in their budget is they change that shopping experience, and they're recognizing there's still potentially the same quality, the vegan options, the gluten-free, all that stuff that's just important, but you can still get those at cheaper prices, which is great that those grocery stores are acknowledging the trends here in shopping.
Yeah, and you bring up sitting down with clients. So you're seeing people save more in their bank account and putting more toward investments by shopping around and looking at some of these different options?
Yeah, well, and it's sitting back and saying, well, where can we save? Because if you're having prices go up in areas where you don't have that flexibility, you have to pay your insurance bill, those sort of things. It's, well, I still need to be saving and spending money ahead for retirement. And so stepping back and again, trying to find those discounts. And then really too, meal planning around what's on sale. So you get that weekly ad, you look and see, all right, well, we're gonna have pork this week and we're going to have tacos, right? And you meal plan around that, and those savings, $20 a week, I mean, that's $80 to $100 based on the month that you can then put towards your retirement or those inflation prices there.
I feel like clipping coupons and going through that weekly ad is something that my mom did, but should we get back to those 50 cents here, 20 cents there type of savings?
Yeah, that idea of every dollar has a purpose in your paycheck, right? And instead of just, I'm not sure what I make, where it's going, in inflationary times, it's really important to kind of grasp that concept. And yes, I mean, get your kids involved. Let's look at the ad together and really decide, well, what do we want for dinner this week? Try it and you'll be amazed at how much you save.
And I want to get to clothing too, because that's the other thing that I'm seeing. A lot of stores push that they have sales and clothing for back to school. By the time you add up clothes, shoes, uniforms for sports, I mean, it all adds up. Any advice on shopping for back to school clothing?
Yeah, so shopping for back to school clothing is a really interesting dynamic. And what is nice is that a lot of the big retailers have reduced some prices on clothing and end of season sales because they're finding their consumers, I need to buy more food or more gas. I have less to buy on extra name brand sweatshirts that might be overpriced. And so we've seen some natural prices come down there in the inflationary environment. But when it comes to the back to school shopping too, buying used, going thrifting, those sort of areas, at least it's posh now, and you can go ahead and use, save some extra dollars that way as well.
Any other places that you see people being able to save, especially the clothes and shoes? I mean, shoes, I know there's always a debate of like, how their foot grows or whatever. Maybe you shouldn't pass along shoes. But are there other places like hidden gems to find gently used clothing?
Yes, I've seen a lot of clients come to me and share they've had success, and personally with Facebook Marketplace and those online marketplaces where you can go and say, yes, these, they've got some name brand things my child's going to be happy with, and it's at the price of the store brand at the big stores there.
Yeah. It's funny because we also talk about selling on those places.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's such a hassle to take pictures and then try and sell my kids old, but it might be like 10-pack of leggings for a girl, or maybe it's the, Nike or name brand products for the boys. But does that bring in some extra cash?
Well, it does bring in some extra cash, and I love it. And even especially when we bring up back to school clothing, getting your kids involved, or even let's go through your closet. What don't you need anymore? And you can even entice them with, we'll split the profits and those sort of things. So they kind of see the reward of the work and the why behind it. And maybe they're working towards buying that Letterman's jacket this year. And if I sell enough of my old jeans, I'll get that kind of thing.
It's funny, mom speak, when you exaggerate to kids. I think I told my daughter the other day, I said, no, we're not buying anymore. I'm out of money. And the other day she goes, are you really out of money, or do you have a little bit left? And I'm thinking, oh no, did I just teach her a bad lesson, or should I? And I had to explain costs of things are going up, whatever. How can this time in our lives, when I don't know anybody who is not looking at prices of things, trying to save, trying to figure out how to cut those monthly bills, how do we turn this into a teaching moment for our kids so that they get more involved in the household budget?
Yeah, Maureen, that's a great question, because setting that foundation, that relationship with money, and younger with your kids just is a great catapult forward here for their future. And so this idea of, to your point of kind of talking about things are going up, how do we best look at it, but not in a scary way, an empowering way. We make choices with our money. So like an example is, this is your lunch budget this week. And you pick and choose, when are you buying, do you save that ice cream treat for Friday? And then when it comes to kids getting older, right, you need this backpack for school, but I need you to go ahead and work on getting the case for your computer or something like that if you're buying that computer. So I think finding opportunities to get your child involved with a purchase that they want and having them have some skin in the game starts that foundation of saving for those wants.
Yeah, it's a great reminder too to adults as we are looking and we're trying to teach our kids. The parents are kind of giving themselves a refresher in needs versus wants. What would you say as we're trying to reset our thinking? I think, nowadays versus our grandparents' era of needs versus wants, how should we be approaching what we really need and how to view wants?
Yeah, and so especially if we're talking family dynamics and that piece of it, thinking ahead about retirement is always key. You want to give your kids the best life you can, but really one of the best gifts you could give them is to not be a burden on them in your retirement. So stepping back and saying, I want to be saving for the future. I need to be saving for the future. And maybe in today's world, you could pick 3 extracurricular activities, not the 5, because they all cost money. And we need to decide, you can do, really anything you want, not everything you want, and what is important to you and what do you value, and then focus in on those items.
For new parents or parents who are just starting maybe the school process, those extracurriculars have sneaky costs too. So how do you prepare in advance for some of those sneaky, like the required shoes, or right now when we're done with this interview, I have to go buy the team T-shirt, and it's $15 here, $20 there. Yeah. But that adds up.
Yeah. So best practice there is to find a parent that's a grade or 2 above and be like, let's talk.
Yeah.
Right. Like, come over, let's have a glass of wine, and I need to kind of forward think here about what extracurricular activities are available and what kind of costs come with those. Because you're right, those do add up, and you need that cushion in your budget to say, yes, we could get that T-shirt. Or to your maybe older child, right? These are the costs associated with this activity. Where are you going to be contributing?
Yeah. Now you brought up 401k investment savings. Right now it's a really rough time with the markets so up and down. And every time we go through this, people are asking, what should I be doing? Should I be changing my 401k or my retirement savings? What do you think with the climate that we're in now? Should we be talking to our financial advisors and looking at a way to retool?
Yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic right now. Kind of the market has recovered a little bit here through the year, but we're still down, and it's just, do we expect more volatility moving forward? And the market is just looking at so many different things: inflation, supply chains. There's, just a lot going on. And so if your needs haven't changed, if you do not need to access money in the next 2 years, keep going with your plan. Keep saving. It's that idea of the right behavior over time, staying invested over time is what builds wealth, not timing the market.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you too, because you're a mom.
Yeah.
Do you have a special savings trick? Like, is there your go-to way to cut the monthly budget?
Yeah, the go-to way to cut the monthly budget is to eat in. To not order, to in, and just do that meal planning. I mean, that's really make you the biggest impact. Yes, it's like extra time in the day and dishes to clean up, but you're not paying that delivery fee, you're not tipping. Those areas add up, and trust me, that really hits the bank account.
Let's talk about making those at-home meals, because like we've been saying, those staples, those grocery items have been going up. So is it cheaper? I want to take a look at what a BuzzFeed writer found. She just happened to see her receipts from April 2020 and compared them to April of 2022 just to see how much those prices have increased. Here are a couple of items that she found. Go-Go applesauce, which we put in a lot of lunch boxes, those were $5.50 back in 2020, and then $8.99 in 2022. So that's a price hike of $3.49. Then sweet cherries. So we buy a lot of produce. That was $3.99 in 2020 and $5.59 in 2022. That's a price hike of $1.60. Then she took a look at crescent rolls, something we make for dinner a lot. $2.19 in 2020. $3.59 2 years later. That's an increase of $1.40. Plastic wrap, one of those necessities you have to have in the kitchen, $1.99 in 2020, $2.39 in 2022, so that jumped 40 cents. Then dog food. We've been talking about this a lot in our newsroom. $14.49 in 2020. $17.19 2 years later. So that price hike of $2.70, you start to add all of those things up. And of course, the grocery bill, that's why we're seeing it increase so much. So all of these items, like we've been saying, that you have to buy. Do you go store to store? Do you have those? I don't know, like, I know I see a mailer, but like, I don't know where I even look at like prices for grocery stores where they're showing off the weekly deals. Do you guys price compare in that way and like try and hit the stores to get the sales?
I mean, not really. I mean, honestly, on this shift, working an overnight, having a toddler, like, don't have a lot of time to do the price comparisons. So if I happen to hear about a deal from a friend or see something come through on like a notification on my phone, it's more so that way. Or sometimes like direct coupons in the mail. I've noticed that Meijer specifically like really tracks what you buy. So I will get very specific coupons to what I buy at Meijer. So I'm like, I will actually use all of these coupons that they sent to me. So that's kind of nice. But other than that, there's certain items that we know we have to buy at certain stores.
Yeah.
And because that's the only place you can get them. Yeah. So I feel like that kind of more so dictates where we shop.
So you have the app. Do you have like an app, a Meijer's app that it's tracking?
Yep.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. I do use like there's a store here, Fresh Time, that it's a smaller store, but they've also tailored their coupons to like what I've bought, which I didn't even think about until you just mentioned it.
Like Brooke said, it's if you really, really want to save money, it's going to take time. Yeah. Because, those are awesome. But there's lots of apps that you can find coupons on, or you can upload your receipt to and get money back. But you got to do that stuff, and sometimes there just isn't enough time. Like, I might know that this store has cheaper ground beef and this store has cheaper chicken, but I need chicken and ground beef. So I just got to go, Yeah. The one thing I will say that I've done is stop taking my kids to the grocery store with me because they pick out everything, and I have a hard time saying no. And so I do feel like I my husband's bad too. He's just as bad as the kid.
Yeah.
It's like they just throw things in the cart without ever looking,
Right.
at the prices and stuff. And I'll be like, we get generic. I remember one time my husband grabbed like organic apples, and I was like, you think we're a millionaire? Buy organic apples? Even though they're fantastic for you. So I'm not trying to, I'm just saying like the price comparison never hits them because they're not, in charge of the budget, whereas I kind of take that lead at home.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too, like over the years as I've been talking to different financial advisors or dietitians, they've also talked about like don't discount the canned vegetables and canned fruit, because sometimes you can get an organic, like a can of organic green beans. They talk about, they're picking those at the freshest, and those are, a way to get organic that is a little bit cheaper than other ways, like if you do buy fresh. So that's always a piece of advice that I've taken away too.
Right. Yeah.
And then I think there's a big debate, and I know we've had it just amongst ourselves at our desk, the buying in bulk. Like that seems to be a big, a way that I've seen multiple financial experts on all of the networks say, oh, buy in bulk and you'll save so much. But then I feel like, okay, so then I go to Costco and my bill is outrageous. Yeah. So then I started using Instacart because I could see that total add up before I made it to the actual checkout. But then with Instacart, you're paying, like I was paying $20 in a tip. If it was a big grocery run, then I'm tipping somebody $20. So it's this, how much am I saving? Should I just be going myself with a calculator and pricing things out? I don't know. Have you guys really delved into bulk and like, do you do Instacart?
Yeah, I think I have price compared. What I love to do is look at the unit prices. So now, like, especially at Costco, it will say like price per unit. So if it's a big box of mac and cheese or, something like that, or like even like their frozen pizzas, 3 frozen pizzas, they break down how much it costs. So like I found butter is the cheapest there on a normal day, unless it's the holidays, then, and they're running sales. So there's certain things that I do find that, but I can't just go there. What I do end up doing, I go and then I'm like, oh, this looks good. Oh, this look, and that's where, maybe you are saving money even though you're spending on that. I don't know.
I don't know. That's one of those, again, it takes time.
Yes.
It takes time. If I'm going to save money, then I have to go there and buy myself in bulk, or I have to actually sit there and look at unit prices and do the calculations and do the math.
And it's hard. I think everybody's just trying their best, but it is, really taking a toll on people's wallets. And I feel fortunate enough that I'm able to still buy a lot of these things. Some people are penny pinching and finding it a lot harder, to find that.
Is there anything you're making at home that you normally would have just bought at the store?
The things that I find we do make at home, I would definitely not say it's saving us money.
No, really?
Yeah. Like we like to make homemade ice cream. Way more expensive than buying it.
Yeah.
Way more delicious, but
way more expensive. I made hummus the other day, and it's like buying those pine nuts.
Why are you putting pine nuts in it?
In hummus?
Yeah.
It's an ingredient and a topper.
So I've made hummus. I actually did make hummus last week, and I didn't have pine nuts in the recipe. So that's where pine nuts are expensive. Yeah. But like that's where my daughter actually loves it, and I made enough hummus for like a small army with 2 cans and some tahini. So I don't know.
I might need your pine nut free recipe then.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excluding a lot of those expensive ingredients if it means stretching something and then making something more in bulk.
One thing I do, and actually Brooke showed it to me, was make my own laundry detergent. Yeah. And that's one of those things my mom calls me little home on the prairie when I'm making it. She thinks it's crazy, but it's very inexpensive. It works well. But then I do add like the scent beads, and sometimes you gotta use like some of the other things that, maybe if you're using regular, you didn't. But I find that has saved a ton of money because I do probably 10, 12 loads of laundry a week. Yeah. And so not having to throw a Tide Pod in or, something like that does, it lasts me a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll have to share that recipe too. Yeah. We'll be recipe sharing all across the board. But I also feel like, especially this time of year when the weather starts to turn cooler, the big pot of something on the stove. Like I try to find those recipes that are like the big pot of, if it's sauce, I can freeze sauce. If it's like a stew, it stretches throughout the week. It doesn't have to be, I make one that is vegetarian, so I'm not adding the meat in there, and that seems to help keep at least everybody full for cheaper for a long time, and then I can freeze some other items. But
well, and you know what? My neighborhood, I live in what I think is a fun neighborhood, and we have like a group dinner almost every week. And so when you talk about feeding 12 kids, and adults, our go-tos are always Brinner, which is really, you know, eggs are getting more expensive and things like that. But that's something. And then even for lunches, like my daughter has loved taking like hard-boiled eggs and things that like, I guess aren't those lunch staples. I've been trying to think outside the box. Like I'll make her almost like a little breakfast lunch where I put an egg in there, I put a little bit of Fruit Loops, and then you know, a yogurt and like kind of like breakfasty things that sort of tide her over. So there's other ways to look at like all of the meals, you know what I mean? Like sometimes on Sundays it's just a really big brunch instead of trying to do all 3 meals. Does it save? No, but it might just make it a little bit different.
It stretches.
Yes,
it all stretches. Yes. Now, before you panic at home, we do have an episode coming up. I'm going to explain it in a moment that will help you plan these recipes, etc. But I want to say a huge thank you to both Brooke and Jenny for sharing your secrets. And big secret, do not use pine nuts. We've learned that. If you've learned anything, I hope the pine nut people aren't watching me.
I was just going to say, I hope the pine nut farmers aren't coming after Brooke.
And I want to also say a big thank you to Elizabethscheiderer from Sequoia Financial for her expertise. So, what are those cheap and quick weekday meals that we should be making? Next week on Mom Squad, we have a personal chef and a caterer sharing her go-to meals that are really easy to prep. They don't require a ton of ingredients. I told her, don't use steak. We don't want anything expensive. So that is next week on Mom Squad. I'm Maureen Kyle. Thanks so much for joining us.